My name is Sophie Perez, and I'm 45 years old. I've always been the responsible one, the anchor in every storm, the quiet architect of order in a world that often leans toward chaos. My husband, Stephen Adams, has a daughter, Madison, 26, from a previous relationship. I have two sons, Tyler, 15, and Brandon, 13. When Stephen and I combined our lives, we agreed on something simple: treat all three kids fairly, equally, without favoritism. It wasn't complicated, it was just right. Over the years, I'd kept that promise. I helped Madison with her apartment deposit when she moved out for college. I chipped in for her first car. I never asked for recognition. Seeing her happy was payment enough. And now she was engaged. Her fiancé, Evan, seemed nice on the surface, polite, professional, worked in finance, but something in his eyes was always calculating, and I'd learned to notice that early on. When Madison came to me about the wedding, she was trembling, tears brimming, trying to explain her dream day. A beautiful venue, soft lights, a weekend of memories, and of course, it came with a price tag that made most people gulp. "Sophie," she whispered, clutching my arm. "We found the perfect venue, but it's expensive. I just don't know if we can afford it without help." I nodded, my mind flashing back to every time I had helped her before. It wasn't about the money. It was about seeing someone I cared for happy. "How much?" I asked. 30,000 total. It's everything. The venue, catering, the flowers. I've saved some, and Evan too, but it's not enough." I paused, thinking of my sons, the weekend trips, the college funds. My heart softened. I said yes. Of course I would help. "You would?" Madison's eyes filled with relief. "Oh, Sophie, thank you. You always know. You always understand." She threw her arms around me, crying into my shoulder. I hugged her back, feeling that familiar tug, the mix of pride, protectiveness, and unease that always comes with giving too much of yourself. I wrote checks for the deposits: 5,000 for the venue, 2,000 for the photographer, and another 8,000 for the dress, catering, tastings, and decorations. It all felt right until the first hints of tension crept in. A few weeks later, Madison invited Stephen and me over for a dinner to finalize wedding details. I should have known something was off the second Evan walked in. He kept shifting in his chair, glancing at Madison as if he were waiting for her to say something he could support. We started going over the seating chart when Madison dropped it, like a grenade. "It's adults only," she said. Her voice was almost casual, but her eyes were sharp. "No kids." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, that's fine," I said slowly. "We can get a babysitter for Tyler and Brandon." Madison's smile was tight, almost painful. "Actually, it's not just the ceremony. We don't want them at the reception either. Or anywhere that weekend." My hand froze over my wine glass. "Anywhere?" "Yes," she said, her voice fragile but firm. "We have rehearsal Friday, the wedding Saturday, brunch Sunday. We just think it would be better if Tyler and Brandon weren't there. Focus, you know?" I swallowed, fighting the rising heat in my chest. "Excuse me?" "They're your sons," she said quickly, then corrected herself. "Stepsons." "And," I pressed, "they're part of our family. Blood isn't the only thing that matters." Madison's face hardened. "This is about me and Evan. We want everything to be perfect, with the people who matter." "People who matter?" I echoed. My voice was calm, but every word was sharp. "Tyler and Brandon don't matter?" Evan leaned in, smiling faintly. "We just think it's better to keep the focus on us. No distractions." I looked at Stephen. His fork was frozen halfway to his mouth. "You knew about this?" I asked softly. He hesitated. "Madison mentioned it. I thought she might reconsider." I took a deep breath, the kind that settles into your lungs and roots you to the floor. "Let me make sure I understand," I said. "You want me to pay $30,000 for a wedding my sons cannot attend because, according to you, they're not real family?" Madison rolled her eyes. "Sophie, why are you making this about money? It's about my day." "It is about your day," I said, standing, "but not with my money. Effective immediately, I'm withdrawing all financial support." Madison's face went red. "You can't do that. You already promised." "I already did," I said, "with my money, but not anymore." Her voice faltered. "This is bullying. You're trying to manipulate me." I shook my head. "No, your wedding, your choice, your bill." I left the table before anyone could argue further. Stephen lingered, silent, caught between loyalty to me and concern for Madison. That night, I blocked Madison's number. It wasn't cruelty. It was protection of my sons, my morals, and the principle that you do not manipulate children to get what you want. The storm was coming. I just didn't know how violent it would be. The next few days were a blur of tension, guilt trips, and quiet fury. Madison refused to accept that Sophie wouldn't fund a wedding that explicitly excluded her sons. It started with texts to Stephen, then escalated into messages to Tyler and Brandon, trying to twist the narrative so that my children felt like the villains. "Sophie, please, you don't understand," Stephen said one evening, his hands shaking as he held his phone. "Madison, she's upset. She says I'm ruining her life." I stared at him, my calm facade cracking only slightly. "Stephen, I understand that she's upset, but she's the one trying to manipulate children to get what she wants. That's not my fault." He sighed, conflicted. "I know. I feel stuck." I let him sit with that. Sometimes adults need to feel the weight of their indecision before realizing what's right. Meanwhile, Tyler came home from school one afternoon, his face pale and small fingers trembling around his backpack. "Mom, Madison, she's texting me. She says it's my fault the wedding's falling apart." My stomach sank, but I forced a calm tone. "Tyler, look at me. Sometimes people show you who they really are, and when they do, you have to believe them. Madison is trying to manipulate you. It's not your fault." He nodded slowly, but the hurt was clear in his eyes. Brandon hovered nearby, biting his lip. They were vulnerable, and I would not let them be used as pawns. Madison's escalation was relentless. She started calling from different numbers, texting nonstop, sending messages through mutual friends, trying to guilt and intimidate me. Each time I reminded myself why I had drawn this line. Protecting my sons wasn't optional, it was necessary. Then came the confrontation at my workplace. I was walking through the lobby when security stopped me. Madison was there, dressed in a designer suit, standing stiffly as if she were about to take me to court. Evan lingered behind her, looking nervous but supportive. 5 minutes, Madison said almost curtly. That's all I'm asking. I held up a hand. Don't. You made it clear I'm not really your mother. I'm just your ATM. I'm sorry, she said, voice trembling. Okay, I'm sorry I said that about the boys, but the venue needs $10,000 by tomorrow, or they'll cancel everything. I crossed my arms. Then they'll cancel everything. I'm not paying for a wedding that excludes my children. Evan leaned forward, trying diplomacy. Ma'am, respectfully, you're being petty. Madison phrased it poorly, but punishing us financially is cruel. I let out a slow breath, each word measured. Cruel is taking a woman's money for 8 years, helping with college, helping with an apartment, helping plan a life, then telling my children they aren't real family. Cruel is planning to exile 2 kids who see Madison as a sister from a major life event. That's cruel, and you're asking me to finance it? Madison's eyes filled with tears. They can come, okay? They can come to the stupid wedding. I shook my head. No, you showed me who you are. That ship has sailed. You only wanted them there when you needed my money. That's not love, that's manipulation. She stood up, mascara running, screaming silently in defeat. I'll never forgive you. You're ruining my life over your pride. I watched them leave, my heart heavy but resolute. I had drawn a line. Protecting my sons meant accepting the chaos that would follow. That night, Stephen and I argued about whether I had been too harsh. I slept alone on the guest room couch, thinking about fairness, morality, and the kind of family I wanted to be. One that doesn't let money and pride dictate the value of its children. By Friday, the storm had grown. The venue called, no payment, and the wedding teetered on cancellation. Madison's desperation turned frantic. Stephen begged me to reconsider, worried about Madison's humiliation, her social reputation, the public fallout, but my resolve didn't waver. I drove to pick up the boys from school, talking to them about integrity, boundaries, and the difference between fairness and indulgence. Tyler asked quietly, "Does Madison really hate us?" I pulled him close. Sometimes people show their true selves when they're upset. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong. You're my sons. You are family, and that's what matters. We went for pizza, laughter slowly creeping back between bites of pepperoni and fries. For that night, I held them close, protecting their hearts from the storm outside. The first salvo in this battle was over, but I knew it wouldn't be the last. Madison's sense of entitlement, her obsession with a perfect day, and her willingness to hurt others to get her way were far from done testing me. Madison wasn't finished. The moment I thought we had weathered the storm, she found new ways to push, manipulate, and escalate. It started with texts to Tyler, messages dripping with guilt and blame. "If your mom cared about me, you'd be at the wedding," one read. Tyler showed me, eyes wide, voice trembling. I didn't yell. I didn't panic. I took a deep breath. "Tyler," I said, kneeling to his level. "Look at the words. Madison is trying to make you feel guilty for something you didn't do. That's not your responsibility. You are a good kid, and I am here. That's what matters." Brandon nodded beside him, trying to appear braver than he felt. I could see the fear in their eyes, fear of rejection, of being unloved, but I refused to let Madison poison them. Then the direct confrontations began. One morning, I was called to the school office. Madison was there, trying to pull Tyler out, claiming a family emergency. The receptionist looked confused, unsure of protocol. I stormed in, heart racing. "He is not authorized to leave with you." Madison's face twisted, a mix of desperation and defiance. "I just want to talk to him. I'm trying to apologize." I leaned close, voice low but firm. "No. You've been clear who you think we are. My children are not pawns for your manipulation. Step aside, Madison." Security arrived, gently escorting her out. She sobbed, but I didn't flinch. I couldn't. I was the anchor. I had to be. Back at home, the phone rang relentlessly. Evan calling from different numbers, Stephen pleading, even Madison herself attempting indirect contact. Every call was a test, a challenge. Would I cave? Would I let the fear of social fallout and humiliation make me compromise my principles? I didn't. By midweek, the venue called again, desperate for payment. I refused. If Madison wanted her perfect day, she would have to pay for it herself. I knew the consequences: canceled bookings, non-refundable deposits, social embarrassment. But my son's safety, dignity, and inclusion mattered far more than a photograph-perfect weekend. Stephen was conflicted. I could see it in the furrow of his brow, the slight tremor in his hands. "Sophie, maybe I should help her. She's stressed. She didn't mean—" I interrupted, calm but unwavering. "Stephen, she knew exactly what she was doing. She tried to make my children the villains. That is not acceptable. We will not bend." Even Evan attempted persuasion in person, approaching me one afternoon with a practiced smile. "Sophie," she phrased it wrong. "It's not fair to punish all of us financially. We're asking for a compromise." I let out a slow breath, steadying myself. Cruelty isn't financial strain. Cruelty is expecting money from someone who protects their children while telling those same children they don't belong. I am not financing cruelty, Evan. The look in his eyes was a mixture of disbelief and anger, but I didn't care. The stakes weren't about weddings or deposits. They were about moral clarity, family loyalty, and the courage to stand firm. Later that evening, Stephen sat beside me on the couch. His voice was soft, hesitant. I see why you're doing this. I hate seeing the fallout, the humiliation, the public spectacle." I placed a hand over his. "I know. It hurts to watch her unravel. But if we cave now, the message to our children is clear. You can be manipulated, you can be excluded, and someone else's pride dictates your worth. I won't let that happen." The following morning, the first tangible consequences arrived. Madison's panic was visible everywhere. Calls from vendors, emails about canceled deposits, frantic messages to friends. Her world was crumbling, not because I had done something wrong, but because her own choices had finally collided with reality. Tyler and Brandon, meanwhile, were safe. They knew I had their backs, and that certainty was more valuable than any wedding, any social image, any check. That night, I sat with them on the couch, watching a movie we'd recorded weeks ago. Their laughter was hesitant at first, then full and genuine. In those moments, I knew that everything I had done, every confrontation, every moral stand, was worth it. Madison had forced my hand, but I had turned her chaos into clarity. Family, real family, meant loyalty, respect, and love, not money, status, or appearances. And if she wanted a lesson in responsibility, she was about to learn it the hard way. The storm didn't stop at boundaries and moral stands. Madison's desperation reached new heights. She began showing up at school unannounced, trying to manipulate Tyler into leaving with her. I had to call the principal myself, making it clear she was not authorized to pick up my child. Security had to escort her out, sobbing and screaming, but I didn't flinch. My son's safety and emotional stability were non-negotiable. That same week, I filed for a temporary restraining order. Using her harassment messages and the school incident as evidence, the court agreed. Madison couldn't contact my sons, nor approach our home or school. For the first time, there was legal clarity and some small peace. Meanwhile, Stephen finally understood the depth of what had happened. Sitting across from me on the couch one evening, he said, "Sophie, I see now. You weren't being harsh. You were being fair. You were protecting them." I nodded, squeezing his hand. I love Madison, but love isn't about enabling cruelty or manipulation. My sons come first. That will never change. The fallout rippled outward. Evan, frustrated and embarrassed by the constant drama, broke up with Madison. He discovered she had been hiding credit card debt, $15,000, and had planned to fund parts of the wedding and pay off bills with anticipated gifts. His family, too, was furious. Madison's meticulously curated image of a perfect life began to crumble. Madison tried one last desperate measure, showing up at my workplace again. Security was ready this time. She ranted, violating the restraining order. Police were called. She spent a night in jail, and the judge issued a year-long extension of the restraining order and mandatory community service. Through it all, my focus remained on Tyler and Brandon. We went fishing, hiked mountains, spent nights under tents, and laughed in ways that money or social status could never buy. Tyler said it was the best week of his life. Brandon whispered, "I'm glad you're my mom." Those words, simple and heartfelt, outweighed every wedding, every deposit, every social expectation. Stephen and I also began repairing our relationship with a sense of clarity. Counseling helped us navigate the tension, the public scrutiny, and the guilt that often accompanies blended family dynamics. Madison had chosen her path. We chose to stand firm, love each other, and prioritize our children. Weeks later, a letter arrived. No return address. Madison's handwriting was unmistakable. "I hope you're happy. You got what you wanted. I'm alone, broke, and humiliated. All because you couldn't just let me have one day that was about me. You turned everyone against me over one comment. I'll never forgive you for destroying my life. But I guess that doesn't matter since I'm not real family anyway." I read it and felt a pang of empathy, but no regret. I knew my sons were safe, loved, and secure. I had not destroyed her life. She had merely faced the consequences of her choices. The $30,000 I didn't spend on a wedding gone wrong, I divided it wisely. $10,000 into each of Tyler and Brandon's college funds, and the final $10,000 for a family vacation we'd never forget. Fishing, hiking, campfires under starlit skies, moments that mattered far more than any Instagram perfect event. Friends, relatives, and even Stephen family saw the fallout differently, but one truth remained. My sons knew who stood for them. That lesson, that unwavering protection, was worth more than any wedding, any deposit, any social accolade. Madison learned a lesson in entitlement, manipulation, and accountability, the hard way. And for us, the lesson was simple. Love, fairness, and family loyalty are not negotiable. My sons are my priority, always. Even now, I sometimes glance at that letter, at her words dripping with bitterness, and I smile quietly because in protecting them, I protected the most important thing of all, the heart of my family.